Just the other day, I discovered that YouTube now has a feature called Inspirations, in which it will use an AI to scan your video titles, thumbnails, descriptions, and comments, and then recommend you make videos based on those. I thought I'd give this a genuine try, and the results were somewhere between hilarious and so funny that Jimmy Carter would wake up snickering. Real videos a multi-billion-dollar company recommends I make include, but are not limited to, which British TF2 Mercs, quote, goon about? What jobs would TF2 YouTubers get? TF2 Mercs, their astounding childhood deformities, and to modern Jax films, a TF2 mercenary perspective. Not once, but twice. Twice does YouTube think me making a video ragging into Jax films from the perspective of Scout is a profitable endeavor. So for this video, I've cherry-picked the creamiest of the kittens, and we're going to be bringing these stupid ideas to life. Subscribe if you haven't, because if I'm able to hit 100k subs by the end of the year, I'll show you my haul, and let's get into this business. Okay, there is no way this video doesn't start off by addressing the elephant inside the mouse inside the room. Which of the British TF2 Mercs, quote, goon about is such a funny video title, and is also dangerously close to the most popular video I've ever made. I wasn't able to go back and read the description for most of these because I'd already refreshed the page, but if you really need to read the description to know what this kind of video would be about, then I think there's a Chuckle Nuts podcast out there which is more on your intelligence level. So, which British TF2 Mercs would goon about? The answer's Demo. So regardless of where you come from within the entire United Kingdom, you are a British citizen. And considering how Demo comes from Scotland, he is technically the only British TF2 Merc, and so is the only one relevant for the title of the video. As for whether or not he goons about, when dominating a Medic as Demo, he has a chance to shout about how he's getting it on with the Medic's wife, which was enough for me to consider him a gooner in my Virgins video, so yeah, why not? So, Demo is the only British TF2 Merc to goon about. You can see why I don't trust this as a good idea for a video. -2 Walter points out of 10. I, as a content creator, don't get into a lot of controversy, and believe it or not, this is actually something I'm looking to pursue in the future. And so when a multi-billion-dollar company suggests I make a video talking about what jobs I think TF2 YouTubers could get, I just immediately smell blood in the water. Most TF2 fans with the ability to comment on YouTube videos either have the mentality of a 5-year-old or an 11-year-old who was held back 6 years at school. Combine this with the stubbornness of a bad case of thrush, a joke that 84.5% of you aren't going to understand, and we have ourselves the perfect recipe for something that could potentially go wrong. So allow me to say, if I accidentally give your favorite creator a bad job, I do not care. Please do not take this too seriously. This is just meant to be a bit of a laugh, and does not reflect my opinions on the various creators listed that I have met. Good? We all good? Great. Okay, so here are some various jobs that I think some various TF2 YouTubers would be good at, that aren't video related. Starting within my own smaller circles and then moving outwards, I always thought I'd make a really good psychiatrist or plasterer. Squiddy G markets his channel to my audience like there's no tomorrow, so I think he'd be a pretty good marketer. Zob would be a very good news reporter, as, well, ironically enough, he was for TF2 for a little while. I've seen Cypherlox cooking, it's not great, which is why I think he'd be a good prison chef. Noni Nonas is almost an anagram of Ironstone, so I think Blacksmith is pretty fitting. Saber hates people, therefore she'd be a decent librarian. And I think Sukas would be an excellent lumberjack, because when he throws it back, the turbulence on that freight train can level entire forests. Now moving out into some larger names. Uncle Dane is a teacher to most people, so why change anything? I went to a job interview recently and met someone who was actually a cosplay designer in their spare time, so I think Skymin has her future set out. I don't know who Shonik is, but apparently he makes things, so I'm just going to say software designer. The Bad Weapon Academy guy, I've already forgotten his name whilst writing this, could probably run some sort of academy somewhere, maybe like a scouts organization. Shulk could either be a professional videographer or a manager with all of the time he spends doing both. Most of the SFM and Gmod animators most definitely have a very transferable skill in animation. Soundsmith could, like, probably be a bus driver or something. Lazy Purple unfortunately died back in 2022, so the only thing he could work is the graveyard shift. I've always had a sneaking suspicion that the Watcho could bake a killer sourdough. Grouch could probably be a nurse for the rest of his life, knowing how well he is at dealing with bleed. All of the spy YouTubers could probably comfortably hold down office jobs. I'm not going to single any out in particular, because whilst all spy YouTubers make amazing content, they all do the exact same thing. Just like in an office job. Ceramon is genuinely one of the nicest people I've ever met in the TF2 sphere, so he could be a king. And likewise, Wheezy is also one of the nicest people I've ever met in the TF2 sphere, so he could also be a king. And then finally, I think Solar Light could just about hold down a fast food job. Remember at the very beginning when I said that some of these were so funny they'd make Jimmy Carter wake up snickering? Well, this one made Margaret Thatcher wake up, have a hearty belly laugh, and then continue her campaign against coal and the world. What if TF2 weapons were used for chores is the most AI idea out of all of the Which TF2 weapons would be used for chores is the most AI idea out of all of the AI ideas we're going to cover today. I also thought I'd show you the thumbnail YouTube generated to go along with this one, and it's the best thumbnail I've ever seen in my life. So how I'm going to interpret this title is that I'm going to list out the 10 weapons I think would be best for house chores, and then declare the merc who has the most of these weapons to be the squeakiest of the clean. No reskins included. Number 10, the flying guillotine. In the rare instance that you, the viewer, are both a little German boy and have all of your chores related to meat chopping, I think the physical pain in your side that is the flying guillotine will have more use than you think, and it will save you from going into either the Chernobyl power plant or the Genshin Impact Discord server. Number 9, the rap assassin. It's the seasonal period, and you've been asked to decorate the living room. Just start swinging those glass balls around until everything sparkles like the Caribbean Sea, and if the Grinch breaks into your house whilst you're decorating and tries to take all of the presents, you can just kill him. A good weapon for doing chores maybe about 31 days out of the entire year. Number 8, the bushwhacker. Those bushes aren't going to whack themselves. The hedge out front is getting a little bit overgrown and your mum's asked you to go cut it. Why would you use a pair of shears when you can just hack at it like you're Okay, I haven't actually watched any jungle films, I don't have a comparison here. Just walk into the hedge and swing until you hit something that doesn't bleed. Number 7, the home wrecker. As someone who comes from a broken home, I can confidently tell you that there are more chores than you'd think that can be performed with a sledgehammer. It's not many more, and the results normally aren't going to be very good. But it is more than you'd think. Anything from DIY to cleaning fine china plates, a sledgehammer is pretty good at. You can even take it with you golfing when you're done with your chores. Number 6, the fire axe. The main thing I miss about living with my parents was the sledgehammer, but the second thing I miss the most is using an actual fire axe to cut wood. It was a fantastic reliever of stress, especially after competitive Overwatch games. We don't have a wood-burning stove where I am currently, but I really miss swinging an axe over my head. Made me feel good. I don't know, maybe I should become a psychopath. Number 5, the hot hand. Hey look, our third pyro weapon in a row. The reason Pyro has so many weapons on this list is purely because a lot of his weapons are just either normal things or normal things Frankenstein together to make abnormal things. A fireman's glove is surprisingly versatile, I would know. Aforementioned psychopath. Can protect you from splinters, burns, and yeah, I guess you could use it to get tough stains out of a carpet if you wanted to. Overall, pretty versatile for what it is. Number 4, all of Heavy's lunches. Yeah, we're grouping them in together. Feeding pets, feeding younger siblings, feeding the eldritch demon in the basement. All valuable chores in modern day society. Walter can have the meats, the children can have the sandwiches and the bananas, and I've heard Cthulhu is quite a big fan of chocolate. Number 3, the back scratcher. Are those pesky leaves giving you too much trouble? Well, no problem. With this handy tool, leafing those rakes will be as easy as prick. The back scratcher's other uses include, but are not limited to, foreplay. Oh. Oh, I didn't write the rest of the joke. I'm looking in my script now, there's nothing else but foreplay. Once you let go of your woke live fart mentality that rakes can only be used to rake the leaves, you start to discover that the rake is actually the 5th element that God introduced to this wonderful world. I don't know, you're just gonna have to trust me on this one. Another one of those aforementioned chores I used to do. Number 2, the man treads. The man treads for this context are just a pair of ordinary boots. But those aren't just any pair of ordinary boots. Literally anything related to garden or outdoor chores can be done with a pair of boots. I understand that all Americans live in apartments and survive on nothing but DoorDash. I don't know what DoorDash is, we don't have that here, but I can confidently tell you, as someone from the rest of the world, some people have gardens, and gardens need a lot of maintaining, which is often the reason why some people have children to begin with. I personally believe I was a product of that. Number 1, the wrenches. Yeah, this is really a no-brainer. Anything remotely metal and electronic in your house that doesn't work, just smack it until it does. There is literally no competition here. I'm pretty sure a TF2 wrench would work on a table. One of your chores is to babysit your brother and fix the iPad he's currently puking on? Well, as long as you have enough metal, you can constantly strike the iPad with the wrench whilst he's puking on it. Make sure little bro gets 100% iPad uptime. And with the list concluded, you'd probably think that Pyro would be the winner. However, he only has 4 weapons on this list, along with Heavy with his 4 lunches. The real squeakiest of the clean is Engineer with all 5 of his unique wrenches. Overall, on the Walter scale out of 10, I think I'd probably rate it. Wait, hang on, no, I forgot to rate the previous idea we did. Okay, I'm gonna give that one a -7 point arm ripped off, and I'm actually gonna give this idea our most positive score yet in a +3. In life, you can only guarantee two things: taxes and ranking videos. Not death though, we've proven over the course of this video that can be manipulated. Ranking TF2 Mercs parental skills is an interesting title choice. I really don't know where the pieces from this title have actually come from. I don't think I've ever talked about parenting or skills on my channel before, but I have talked about TF2. So I think the way I'm going to interpret this is just by ranking the Mercs from worst to best on who I think would be the best parent. And for this, we bring out the good old tier list. Who doesn't love a tier list? By far the most popular modern day way to display any amount of data. I personally would have gone with a pie chart. So you see we have our 5 tiers here. We have the best parent. These are for the Mercs or Merc, who I think would genuinely be a pretty good parent. We've got pretty caring, which is, you know, pretty solid parent. And then, as you can see, there is no in-between. We go straight from good to bad. Parenting is a very, very easy thing to mess up, and it completely and utterly ruins children if you do, so there is no such thing as a fine parent. Actively bad parent is pretty self-explanatory, and then do not let within 100 miles of a child. Okay, well that one sounds like something a little bit different, but I promise that's not what I'm going for. Alright then, so who do I think would be the worst parent hit, Pyro? Look, okay, yeah, the children could have a dog, but they're not going to have a house because it's going to be burnt to the ground. I think Pyro would be a terrible parent. I also think Medic would be a terrible parent. If he uses his own teammates as experiments, like, you know, I don't like the idea of him doing that with his own children. So let's just not even think about that and move on. As for who would be an actively bad parent, yeah, you gotta put Demo in there. The difference between an alcoholic in America and England or the UK is a very, very different thing. A couple bottles a night in the UK in most places is seen as lightweight, but I've seen what alcohol can do to destroy families. No, it's genuinely horrible. And so just choosing that life... Wow, this is a really dark segment. I'm really sorry, everybody. Choosing the bottle over your children is never a good idea. Let's just phrase it like that, and let's move on. Who else do I think would not be a very good parent? Well, ironically enough, I would have said Scout. However, we've kind of see him be a fine parent, actually, in the final comic. So that's nice, isn't it? As for Spy, yeah, he's an actively bad parent. I mean, he abandoned his son a very long time ago. I still genuinely don't know to this day if Scout knows that Spy is his father. I assume he does. Soldier we have seen as a parent. I wouldn't describe him as a good parent. I wouldn't describe him as neglectful. He is interested in his children, so I think I would call him an actively bad parent. Is it Marasmus who says those are the filthiest children I've ever seen? Yeah, I think that's a pretty good sentiment for it. By the way, if you have made it this far into the video, comment down below Walter, my beloved. I just want to see if I can ruin one of my friend's days, because you know Walter? You know the dog I've been showing throughout the video? Yeah, most of my friends hate him, so I'm trying to build an army of Walter fans in order to take them down, so let me know you love Walter down below. As for the rest of these guys, we don't really have very many Mercs left. I think Heavy would be a very good parent. He certainly provides very well, however I do think he would be emotionally distant, so there is that to consider. Scout we actually know is a very good parent, as I was saying, so I'm gonna throw him in there for now. We'll come back to that later, but I am going to throw him in there for now. As for Engineer, I think he'd also be a very good parent. I do think maybe he'd spend too much time, you know, tinkering with his machines. But overall, I think he would be a pretty good parent. Now what about Sniper? I couldn't imagine him raising a child. I'm going to put him in neglectful. I mean, look, he lives in a van. He lives in a van. I don't know if he's still living in a van at the end of the comics. So let's come down to our main 3 here. I'm going to drop Scout down to pretty caring. Not every family needs to be a nuclear family to succeed, but definitely when you have several very young children, a mother is not a bad thing to have on your side. So I think I am going to drop him down to pretty caring. I think I'm going to drop Engineer down as well. Again, it's going to be the focus on machines. He's going to teach his children well, definitely, yeah. But is he really going to spend that much time with them? So overall... yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with this list. Definitely a more rambly section within the video, but hey, you always need something to break up the headache. But I think this is probably a 5 out of 10 on the Walter scale. I think this definitely has some potential behind it, but at the same time, I think there's many more videos I'd much rather make. I, as a human being, am a combination of the best parts of Bryce Dallas Howard and the worst parts of Jeremy Clarkson. In that, I look good in blue, I punch people who talk to me about sandwiches, and I utterly hate the Jurassic Park franchise. Because these opposing factors live within me in perfect harmony, I'm basically immortal and therefore have never considered what my, or anyone else's I meet, last meals would be. And so the question of what would TF2 Mercs' ideal last meals be is obviously something I have never thought about. I also want it to be known that the AI was utterly obsessed with the idea of me covering food in some sort of TF2 related Merc facet. It was either this idea or an idea going on about the TF2 Mercs' healthy eating habits. And we're TF2 players, so we don't like healthy eating. Just like an autistic kid trying to eat an apple, we're gonna go bottom to top on this one. So let's start with Spy and we'll end in Scout. So for Spy's last meal, I think it's going to be a nicely roasted Cornish Game Hen. A Cornish Game Hen isn't really a breed of chicken, it more or less refers to the way the chicken is killed and cooked. Both male and female chickens often killed at a very young age, about 4 to 6 weeks, and then roasted with herbs. Now Spy actually makes quite a few references to Cornish Game Hens throughout his 18 years in TF2. For starters, there's obviously the voice line when he does his signature knife taunt, but there's also this panel from the TF2 comic Unhappy Returns, in which Spy reveals that most of his teeth are fake and are actually hiding tiny meals, which is it's great. I really like this universe. So that's Spy roasted and served up. Now, what about Sniper? So Sniper is one of the few mercs we never really see associated with any sorts of food. I guess the closest you could really say is the fruit shoot, but that's just a comically large apple on top of a comically large head. And no, I'm not going to make any jokes about drinking the Jurati. So I'm just going to take a punt and say that his last meal will be some sort of food he caught himself. So to my surprise, Australia's wildlife doesn't just consist of spiders, crocodiles, and spiders made up of crocodiles. They actually have many sorts of different animals in their wildlife systems, including things like feral pigs, deer, and rabbits. Oh, and then, yeah, there's also these things. Killing and eating kangaroos isn't typical, but it can be done under specific circumstances. What those circumstances are a mystery to me, as Google will not tell me, but I'm sure any game is game for the Bushman. Now, what the hell am I supposed to say Medic's last meal is gonna be? A human heart? I don't think we've ever seen this guy eat anything either, but he sure does keep a lot of hearts in his fridge. Actually, no, you know what? I do have an idea for Medic's favourite last meal. Favourite last meal? I think his last meal would be one of heavy sandwiches. Just because these two fellas, well, they got something special together. Good friends, good colleagues, both psychopaths. And I think sharing a sandwich together would be a very fitting last meal for Medic. Okay, now for Engineer. Engineer's a big boy, and he makes a lot of reference to typical American foods like cream gravy and bacon. And so I think the easiest solution here is to just go to Google and see what is the national dish of Texas. You fat bastard. Chili con carne? What? I thought this was Mexican. Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is fitting. I think this works. Okay, yeah, NG likes his chili. Demo's last meal is an interesting one because we know that solid food and water actually kind of poisons him. So I really just do think it's gonna be like a fine bottle of something. We know from the liquor locker he spends a lot of his money on fine liquors, so I'm not willing to call anything out in particular. Something tall and strong, preferably hurricane related, or he will go insane. So pour him up, serve him out, toss him in a grave. Now as for Pyro, I don't know. I am just genuinely going to say gasoline, as even though it's a community-made taunt, it is the only thing we've seen Pyro come remotely close to eating. So gasoline it is. Now Soldier's another pretty cut and dry case, as I think his last meal would be some sort of military ration. In the comics he describes having a very fond meal of whiskey and ribs with Demo, however I think he was more enjoying the company than the actual food, and we can even see him eating and enjoying rations in many different comics. As for what kind of MRE he'd be eating, I really couldn't guess. Funny story actually, I was playing Elden Ring Night Rain the other day with a friend of mine and Space Guy Online, and my friend halfway through just said he's tucking into some military rations and showed us a huge supply he had of them. And I am now utterly convinced that this is just something Americans do on the daily. So I'm gonna say some sort of beef related military ration. That sounds like the kind of thing he'd enjoy. And then finally Scout, and it's obviously gonna be some sort of fried chicken. In the comic Unhappy Returns, he was offered a last meal, but it hadn't yet happened yet, so I don't really know what it could have been. I definitely do think it would have been some sort of fried chicken though. It is one of his main obsessions. That alongside with being himself and being annoying. Overall, if I really explored this video idea more, I think it could be good, so I'm going to give it the highest score so far, a 6 out of 10 water points. Throughout this video, we've covered quite a lot of ideas, mostly of the bad variety, so allow me to speak with conviction when I tell you, my dear viewer, that out of all of the terrible bad ideas I've had over this channel's life, you were not one of them. Thank you for 32,000 subscribers, 3 million channel views, and 2 years on the platform. Couldn't have done it without you. Literally. And a final big thank you to... Wait, hang on. Did I forget Heavy? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7... Oh, I did forget Heavy. Oh, that is the second video this year I've made where I've forgotten Heavy in a ranking. Right, okay, well, what would Heavy's last meal be? Well, obviously, it's going to be a